Hi, welcome to Go Clyde Productions. I want to introduce to you somebody very special, near and dear to my heart, my sister, Beth Ann Kiernan. Beth Ann is going to share a very heartfelt story today. It's a true story of her life. We know that this time of year, the holiday season, right now, we're just days away from Christmas, can be a very difficult time for many people who are suffering grief, the loss of a loved one, broken relationships, or many other different things, financial crisis and so forth. But Beth Ann is going to tell her story, her experience with loss, the loss of 3 children. So if you know somebody that is suffering, or yourself, and are dealing with grief and loss, please share this story with someone. I think it'll really make a difference in their life. So your story of loss and the hope of Christmas. So Beth Ann, your story starts during the era of the Vietnam War.
It did, when our hearts were so young and so hopeful and so much to dream about. My husband went to Turkey for 13 months after we were married, and we were only 20 years old. I only got 6 letters from him during that period of time. Dear John letters were being written by the women left at home, and vice versa. And a lot of tragedy. Kids from high school that we knew had lost their lives, and that was hard. You knew them, you knew their smiles, their walk. But then one day I got a call that he was coming home for 3 weeks, and he wanted to know where I wanted to go. Well, I remember 7th grade, up on stage singing Faraway Places Far Over the Sea, and I thought, there's other places out there. And so I did want to go other places, and our choice was Alaska, Japan, or Germany. Our grandmother was French and German, and she was born in Germany, Alsace-Lorraine, in a place called Trier. And so I told Ken I wanted to go to Germany. So he flew home, and we prepared for our life anew, and I was so excited, you know, no parents watching over you, and we were going someplace far over the sea, and we arrived in Germany, and it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. I don't know how to express it to you, but the sun would be out early in the morning, and the roosters would be crowing, and then we'd go on our bicycles out for a ride, and rain would fall. That was exciting. Who cares if you get wet? You're in a different country, different things happen, and we're dryable. So that was the beginning. During that time, we got involved with the military, going to a castle at Christmas time in Kölnberg, a big old castle, no heat, lots of warm platters of food. But we sang, we dressed up in 14th century Elizabethan period clothing. Thank heavens, it was heavy and it was warm. And we walked down a half-circular stairway, singing the holly and the ivy. And just being together, it was the most beautiful feeling. Strangers became friends, and it was wonderful. Then later on, as we drove home, we caught a red fox in the lights of our car, and that was exciting in the forest with the snow on the ground. Then later on, the next day, we found out that the busload of people that came from our area in Herzegovina, their bus gave out, and there was a church, an old church, that they were able to sleep in that night, and there was one cup that they all shared, coffee. They had coffee and 1 cup, and but it was good. It was good because it was an experience that you don't experience daily, and it was more conversation. I wish we had that today, where we can talk and feel what we're saying. But anyways, later on that night, I was changing, and my husband looked at me, and he thought, maybe I was pregnant. Well, to me, that was saying, you must be overweight. And I thought, I'm not, although I feel sort of stuffed. And I thought all the kicking around was, air bubbles that just didn't leave me. I hope that's okay to say. But anyways, the next day I went to the military doctor. And I found out I was 6 months pregnant. And that wasn't unusual for me. I only cycled 3 times that year. I was never ever sick and I felt good. But what a surprise. But we were happy. It was like, wow, this is real. And then at 8 months, I was at the hospital and they said something was wrong. And I had a little baby girl. She was stillborn. And I knew something had happened because the air bubbles that was the baby kicking had stopped. But they were afraid I might harm myself because I didn't want to cry and make them feel bad. It was really tough for them, and I had been in labor for a week, and nobody needed to hurt. So they let me go home to see how I would be for the weekend, to see if I would come back alive. I came back alive, and they said that I could go. Now, at that time, I was at Nuremberg Hospital, and at that time, no doctor told me what I had. I had to ask a nurse 2 days later, what did I have? And I had a baby girl. And so I didn't name her till later, but I did name her April Christine for sunshine and flowers. And she would always be in my heart because during that time period, they let many people that lost their children go home to the States. They never asked us that. We never got to see her. And we were on our own. And for years, I thought maybe it was, just what they did with us at that time. But they gave me a piece of paper when I did go home that led me to believe that if I went on this road, I would find where she was buried, only to find out it really said nothing about anything about her. So I, to this day, do not know where she is, except her soul is with the Lord, and I know that. But then 3 months later, I was pregnant again, and did I know? I don't think I knew, except I was pregnant, and I was working in the Officers Club, painting the windows for Christmas. It was a wonderful time, and the little girl I did have, my baby Julie, was busy kicking away at the windows as I was painting for Christmas. And I had Julie, and she was beautiful. She had black hair, rosy cheeks, dimples in her cheeks like my dad, and in her chin like her father. And we were so happy. She was a beautiful dream that we never thought was real or possible. And we used to drive in our little Volkswagen in Erlangen on the cobblestone streets with the snow-laden streets and the snow glistening on the ground from the lights that were coming through the store windows. It was 6 hours past sunset playing. And I just thought I could never, ever lose this baby because this was my world now. And I believed it to be true. Well, time went by, and we found out that my grandma that was born in Germany had taken ill, and I thought, well, I'll go home and let Grandma play with Julie, and I'd help take care of Grandma. I didn't want her in a place where she would be alone. But it was hard getting Julie out of Germany because she had dual citizenship, and we didn't get the go-ahead until one night at 12 midnight. And by that time, we had heard my grandma had died that day. So I thought I was still going to go home so I could be with my mom so she wouldn't hurt so bad. And I did go home. I must get a drink. Forgive me. Always time for coffee. Or tea if you prefer. Anyways, my father wanted me to take Julie over to Children's Hospital because the way she projectile one time when I was tending to her, and she was learning how to swim at 3 months old. Anyways, I took Julie over to Children's Hospital in Orange, California, and I came back a little early, and I was standing behind the doctors as they were looking at her x-rays. I didn't think I'd feel this way right now, but I found out she had 2 massive brain tumors on each side of her head, and was not promising at all. My husband was still in Germany. So anyways, the day she was supposed to have her surgery, the elevator doors opened, and this made me smile because there was this wonderful, robust Irish nun with a big smile on her face, and her name was Sister Mary Margaret. Right then and there, even during the sad part, she just brought joy into my heart to see this wonderful, jovial nun. And she was tending to Julie, going down with Julie for her surgery, and she introduced herself, and Julie was sucking on her pink binky pacifier then. And so Julie went, she had her first surgery. Ken didn't come home till afterwards. And during the trials and tribulations of the different things that they did to her, the testing and the overdose of cobalt treatment, a lot of heartbreak, and yet hope. We always hoped. We always believed in a miracle. I believe in a miracle every time you take a breath. As long as you can breathe, there's always a miracle. To this day, I believe in miracles. Miracles do happen. I've had many. But with Julie, you know, it was just something that was going to lead in a different direction. And so she had 5 surgeries total. We brought her home because there was nothing more they could do. She had been at Children's Hospital for 3 months. And she passed away at home. It was a rough night that night, but she took desperately sick, and there was nothing we could do. And that morning, we had no clothes that we could, or even covers that weren't dirty from her being so sick. But I put her in her crib, and I knew that if I went out to do her laundry, she wouldn't be there. So I was rubbing her little gums and feeling her teeth coming in, and it was like, I knew that she had went, but it was just like Jesus was there, and he lifted her up and out, and it was like, I couldn't pinpoint it. I couldn't pinpoint when she left. And anyways, I told Ken, and we took care of what we had to do. And later on, my husband took me over to the Orange Mall, trying to get me to not think about what just took place and what had been taking place. And so I was at the Orange Mall and watching families together with their children, and all the Christmas ornaments and trees going up in the stores, because Julie died 2 days before Thanksgiving. And so people are readying themselves for the holidays. And I start to think, but the thought never completely went to its full circle. But the thought was, I would always hate Christmas. But no, it was like the Lord stopped me, because I realized Christmas was our hope. This is why Jesus was born. He was born to help us, to guide us, to prepare us. How much do we love him? Do we love him enough to endure? And who can comfort us more than he? And so I knew then I would always, forever love Christmas. And I do. I love Christmas. And it doesn't get easier, but Julie was the heart of my life and my husband's. But years later, should go on to that part or back up.
You're doing fine. It's difficult. It's difficult for me to even listen to this because we all lived through this together.
Yeah.
And I know that you thought about a song. People have asked you if you were ever angry with
No.
God about this.
Oh, how could I be? How could I be? I mean, people always say, well, why did it happen to me? Well, I say, why not me? Who am I that I'm so special that I shouldn't, have sorrows? I mean, why not?
Well, there's a song that
Oh, I love that song.
that is mentioned here in your
Children of the
story
Day.
by the Children of the Day. This was during the Jesus Revolution
Yeah.
in the early 1970s, and the song was called "Come to the Water."
Come to the
And the
water.
lyrics go like, and Jesus said, "Come to the water, stay by my side. I know you are thirsty, you won't be denied. I felt,"
every teardrop.
there you go.
When in darkness, you want to sing it?
Oh no, I don't want to sing it.
When in darkness you cried, and I strove to remind you that for those tears I died.
And
He
that is
did.
beautiful. I understand in the book of Revelation, it talks about our prayers. That our prayers, every prayer that his children pray, they're kept in bowls. So the imagery of Revelation says they're kept in these golden bowls, and God has heard every single prayer. And do we always get the answer that we want? No, we don't. But anyways, let's go on, Beth Ann, with your story.
I could go to that point. I can jump ahead
Sure.
and go to that point when it was 4 years later, and I adopted my beautiful son and my beautiful daughter that came over on Operation Baby Lift. My son was a private adoption given to me, who I'm dear friends to this day, by a girl named Karen who was adopted from Korea when she was 8 years old. But going back to Julie, my mother-in-law was forcing me to go to church to a Bible study, and I did not want to go. I so didn't want to go. It was a Baptist church. I was raised Catholic. We tried out a lot of different denominations. But so long as God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are elevated to who God is, that's the importance of what we believe. So I went to this church, and the kids were taken care of as we went to separate classes to learn things. And they would gather in the church to listen to one speaker. And 4 years later, the Lord gave me my answer that I would not have been able to really accept any time sooner. And this lady stood up there and she said, sometimes God says yes, and sometimes God says wait, and other times, I don't know if it's in this order, but this is what it involved. And sometimes God says no. And when she said that, it was like this heavy weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I started to cry, not out of sorrow, no, out of joy, because that burden had been so heavy. Because I couldn't understand why Julie died. But I was blessed with my son, I was blessed with my daughter, and I would never trade those two for any reason in this world. Our stories go on and on and on, and each life has a story to tell, and each life is struck by sorrows one time or another, or many times over. We had 7 years of sorrow, and it just happens that how much do you love Jesus? How much do you love him? We're not puppets on a string. We're here for a reason. And everybody has a reason and gifts to share with other people.
And Beth Ann, let's go back. There's another child involved.
Yes. David Christopher. So we lost Julie before the holidays, and the next year in September, I had a little boy, And before I had him, I knew I was going to lose him because I would gain 11 pounds of water overnight, and I was ready to rupture. But I wanted to go to church by myself. I felt like my heart was ice. I felt like I couldn't be broken because I was already broken. And so I went to church, Melody Land Christian Center. It used to be an entertainment center where people would come and sing Peggy Lee and well-known names across from Disneyland. It was Theater in the Round. And the pastor asked that we all pray one for another. And this darling little boy out of nowhere came down the aisle, and I was on the edge of the aisle, and he took my hand. And I looked down, and I thought, Lord, is this a promise? But it was like, because I was going to have my tubes tied the next day. And how could I even ask such a question? Is this a promise? But it was. It was like God put his arms around me, and it was a promise I would have a son, but not this time, to take home. Another time. And it was like I physically felt his arms wrap around me, and I felt loved. And I know it was all invisible. It was what I perceived, and what to me I know is true, because that promise did take place. And so anyways, that night, after the lights, they were dimmed for the prayer, the lights came back on. I didn't know who this little boy was or where his mother was. And later on, I saw the mother with the little boy, and I didn't know her. I didn't know her from any place. But anyways, I went in to have the baby the next day, and I did have a little boy. It was David Christopher, and it was a C-section, and he had the same problem as my first one, where the baby looks perfectly normal and beautiful, but the back of the bone structure is not connected, and they don't live too long. I remember seeing this one little baby that had the same problem with a little knit hat on, and she lived for 5 days. And anyways, Dr. Stout came to see me, and this was right after the baby's birth, and he said, I had a little boy, and I go, does he have hair? And he goes, he's beautiful. And I wanted to see him so bad, but at this time, it was an hour and 7 minutes, and I went back to sleep very rapidly, and I didn't get to see him. I wanted to see him, but I didn't. But in my mind's heart and soul, I see his personality, what it would have been, what I believed it to be. But anyways, we named him David Christopher, and while I was at Martin Luther Hospital, where I gave birth to him, the chaplain I had met a time ago, and I knew him through a friend's daughter. And I didn't know at the time that he was with me. I thought I was all alone, except for the doctor. And he found me, and he asked if he could come and sit and tell me something. He didn't want me to think he was crazy. I'd probably think he was crazy. And I'm thinking, well, I'm a little crazy myself, so what does that matter? And so he said he was there, and he felt there was a protective shield around the baby when the baby was born, and that he felt fear. And then it was like he started to reach through the protective shield around the baby, and he felt this great joy. And I thought, if this baby was born just through the Lord, the Lord using him to bless this chaplain that will see many people, many sorrows, and many joys, and be there to share with other people, it was worth it. It was worth to have this one baby for this one man. And I was overjoyed for that. I really was. Time out for another coffee.
And this is, it's a tremendously emotional story, and we know that it is, like I said, we lived through all of Beth Ann's experiences, and to see her faith during this time, and the faith of her husband Ken, and what they went through, it is amazing to see how she has come out, how the Lord has comforted her, because He is the God of all comfort. He can also comfort you.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So long as you breathe, every minute, every moment is real. He's real. I've had so many other experiences that I wish I could share, but there's not enough daylight or moonlight.
So the hope of Christmas is
Jesus.
Jesus.
Real.
Jesus.
And I have to say, even though my heart was so broken so many times, I have so much joy in my heart because I was walking close to Him. That's when you really know that you love Him, when you're walking close. And so often we want to share with people and tell them about the Lord, and you do that. You really do that. But then you too can get lost, because with all this news of things happening here and things happening there are also bad, we forget. And just the other day, this neighbor came over, and she has 3 little girls, and they were singing Christmas carols. You know how long it's been since we've heard Christmas carols? And this just brought so much joy to my heart. And I thought, this is it. So they were reminding me this importance of Jesus' birth, because we can talk about the little baby boy in the manger, but He's a man, and He loves us, and He's gone through what we've gone through. He feels what we feel, like in the song.
Just know this: Jesus will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He'll be right at your side during the toughest, hardest moments of your life. Have faith, trust, and you will receive your answer in due time. Sometimes in this life, we don't know. We don't know the reasons and so forth. But as Beth Ann has described her faith, her hope, and the love of Christ in her own life, we want you to experience that during your difficult times. Thank you for being with us today. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And we'll see you next time on Go Clyde Productions.